to introduce everyone. Yeah, we have Shelley and Mary from Interface, who will give you an overview of how they work and the support that's available for businesses or groups looking to get extra ideas or support. Then it's great we've got Mark joining us from Adam Smith Business School at Glasgow University to talk about the kind of specific opportunities with Glasgow. And crucially, after Mark, we have Julia Muir-Watt. Now Julia's the development manager at the Whithorn Trust, who've done a lot of work with Interface and currently have a project ongoing through Interface to kind of bring to life the Whithorn experience. So if all going well, we'll have 10 minutes for a Q&A at the end of the session. But if there's anything you'd like to raise as we go along, please use the chat functionality in Zoom, and we'll keep our eye on it to make sure that we're answering any questions you may have. So without further ado, I'd like now to hand over to Shelley and Mary from Interface.
This can annoy you.
No, it'll be okay.
You sure?
Oh, yeah.
Thanks very much for that introduction, Ross, and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Yeah, I'm really pleased to be here. As Ross said, please do, if you have any questions throughout today's session, please do pop them in the chat, and we'll hopefully have time to answer them at the end. Interface, as Ross mentioned, is a business support organisation, and we've been operating since 2005. We're a free service, and we're funded to do the work that we do by the various funding bodies you'll see on the slide below there. Next slide, please. What we've been set up to do is very specific. We help make connections into all of Scotland's universities, colleges and research institutes. So we basically act as one door into all the expertise, knowledge, facilities that exist within Scotland. And really what businesses tell us is that we take the time and pain and effort out of going around and knocking on lots of doors. Universities don't tend to have a front door. It can be difficult to know where to go. But we have those connections, and we're able to take that sort of exercise out of it. I'm one of a team of 10 business engagement staff, and we're all based around the country. I cover Borders, and Mary, who you'll hear from shortly, covers Dumfries and Galloway. And we've been set up with that sort of regional basis, so that no matter where a business is in the country, there's a local point of contact who's linked in, who knows the area, and is able to work with businesses to support them and support their needs. We work with any business of any size in any sector looking for any type of expertise. Everything from one-person startups with an idea to big multinational companies. But really our target base are Scottish SMEs, and the majority of companies that we work with are engaging with academia for the first time. And we very much help with that process. We take you through it because it is a bit different. It's really beneficial, but it's slightly different from a sort of straightforward commercial transaction. So that's where we come in, and we're very hands-on. I should add as well that a third of the companies we work with are ones that we've worked with before. So a lot of businesses find it really beneficial and come back to us. I've got companies I've been working with for 10 years. And Julia from Whithorn, who you'll hear from later, has been working with my colleague Mary for some time as well. So we can provide ongoing support and are there to help whenever we can. Next slide, please. So this is just to give you an idea of who we're linking into. Within Scotland, there are about 28,000 academics. There's thousands of departments and thousands of specialist equipment and facilities, and we can provide connections into all of that. You can see the universities there, specialist institutes, and our college network. So really just that one door, taking the time and effort out of reaching out to them. And we work actively with all our academic partners. We keep in touch, we work to understand, what their needs are, what they're looking for, and increasingly, actually, these institutions are coming to us.
So boring. I'm so sorry about this. It's good. It's really fascinating.
Good, good, I'm glad. They reach out to us with opportunities because they recognise that we have really strong links into the community, into the business community, and that we can help share on opportunities. And I'll touch on some of them a bit later on. Next slide, please. So this is just really to give you an understanding of our credentials. We've been operating since 2005. And that map there shows the location of every business that we've supported over that time. So you can see that no matter what part of the country you're in, no matter how remote, that it's no barrier to working with academia. And that's become even more so the case since COVID, and we've all moved to online working. Yeah, it's a really great map, and I think it just really demonstrates how widespread we are. Now, down your left-hand side, you can see some of the numbers there. As you can see, we've got a huge track record in enabling academic partnerships. And down your right-hand side is really the sort of so what. This is why we exist. And this is all real information gathered from companies we've supported. You can see almost all of the companies, 97% said their projects would have either not happened or taken longer without our support. We have an excellent success rate in finding expertise. 95% of the time we're able to identify at least one academic partner to take forward projects. And that third point, perhaps most importantly, 83% of businesses have seen business benefits as a result of their collaborations with academia, and that really is why we're doing it. It's to help businesses grow and develop. And finally, just that final stat on the bottom right-hand corner, over 70% of first-time collaborations involve companies seeking expertise outside of their own area, outside their own industry, and that's pretty typical. Next slide, please. So in terms of practicalities and how it works, excuse me, our process is fairly straightforward. Businesses come to us either directly or through partner organisations such as SSDA or SOCI or other agencies, and they all have something in common. They're looking to develop a new idea, a new process. They might have something on the back burner that they don't have the know-how or even resource to take forward. And what we'll do is we'll have a conversation, identify if it's something that we think we can take forward as an academic partner, and we'll help develop a project brief that articulates your business need and translate it into something for an academic audience. And that's a big, big part of what we do. We also do a lot of triage. If we don't feel it's appropriate, we won't send it on. And I think about the majority of, as you'll have seen, the projects that we sent forward are relevant with a 95% success rate. So once we've developed a project brief, what we'll do is approach those departments that have the relevant expertise. So you might be looking for expertise around digital or facing virtual reality. We know what departments do that. We know what academics do that. So we will send it out to their departments, and we give them 2 weeks to come back to us with any expressions of interest. So at the end of those 2 weeks, we should receive any expressions of interest from interested academics and departments outlining their expertise, and perhaps sometimes how they would like to deal with your particular challenge or project. And then it's up to the business to decide who they want to work with. Sometimes we get one university coming back, sometimes we get up to 6 or 7, but you're able to make an informed decision as to whom you want to speak to. What we will then do is, once you've decided who you want to talk to, we'll make introductions by email, and then you're speaking to the people who can directly help with your project. Now we take a bit of a step back at that point. We don't project manage, but we certainly keep in touch and find out how things are going. If there's any barriers, if there's any questions, if there's anything anyone's uncertain of, companies that we're supporting can come to us and ask those questions, and we will help either until a project is agreed or until perhaps sometimes it's decided actually this isn't going to work, and they'll decide not to progress on that occasion, and that's absolutely fine as well. Next slide, please. There's an awful lot of ways of working with universities, and here is just a fairly short list of the sorts of things that we can help with. Everything from market validation and research to perhaps technical product or service development. It can be consumer testing, it can be quite desk-based, looking at strategy, all sorts of different ways of working with universities. And these vary in size and scope as well. It can be something very short-lived that lasts a couple of weeks, or they can be very long-term projects. And that really depends on a variety of factors, what the business is looking for, what is achievable with resource and budgets, what's available within the university. So all these are things that we will talk to you about in that initial conversation to try and manage expectations and drive you towards a solution. Next slide, please. So Interface is a free service, which is fantastic, but obviously tapping into high-level expertise from academics does come at a cost. And there's a couple of ways that we typically find that companies work with universities and colleges for the first time, and I'm going to talk you through them as just to give you a sort of example. One of the ways is through a funding scheme that we administer. We don't control the funds, it comes from the Scottish Funding Council. But the Innovation Voucher Scheme is a £5,000 grant available to all Scottish businesses based in Scotland to work with an academic partner for the first time, and that can be a university or a college. There's two types of vouchers available. The standard innovation voucher on product and process kind of does what it says on the tin. It's about a company that's looking to develop a new product or process but needs some specialist expertise to help get it to market. Companies need to be looking for expertise that can't be delivered commercially, so it does require that specialist expertise, and it also needs to pass a certain threshold of innovation in terms of what's new, what's being developed. But it's a really, really useful tool to enable that first-term collaboration. It's match funded in kind through time and resource, so it's a very low-risk way for a business to engage with an academic partner for the first time. In that there's generally absolutely no cost to the business, and this is a fund that's been running since 2008 and is very, very popular and successful. The second type of innovation voucher there is the Workforce Innovation Voucher. It has the exact same criteria. It's for Scottish businesses. You can only access it once, each of these once, I should say. But this voucher is very much where businesses are focused on their internal development, internal workforce practices, new processes, business expertise. And I'm going to talk you through a case example of how this has been used by a tourism business later on. Finally, we've got the Student Placement Innovation Voucher, and this particular one needs to directly follow on from a standard innovation voucher, and that allows a PhD or master's student to work within a business on a clearly defined project. Now, that's typically for up to 3 months. Again, it doesn't require cash contribution from the business, so it's a really good way of continuing the relationship, but it does directly have to relate to the initial project. Next slide, please. What we find, however, is that not everything that comes our way suits the innovation voucher programme. As I said, there's certain things that it won't fund. It won't fund students. It won't fund anything that can be delivered commercially, and there needs to be that threshold of innovation that is met. So if we are speaking to a company for the first time and we don't feel that that's a possibility, the other route in can often be through working with student groups, both postgraduate and undergraduates. And here we've got a list of just a couple of the sort of ways that we can help link into students with expertise in these areas. It's something that, as I say, universities are increasingly coming to us, looking for us to connect. And the way this works is typically we'll have a conversation with a business. If there's an opportunity live at the moment, then we can often make an initial introduction. We'll send it to, we'll help draw up together a project outline. We'll send it to the course programme manager. If they accept it and think it's suitable for one of their students, we'll make that introduction and the process can get started. Sometimes, however, we speak to a company and there isn't anything at that particular moment, but we know that there might be in a couple of months. So what I would encourage you to take away from this is have a conversation with us, even if there's something that we can't help with immediately, or if you think there might be something down the line, if we know what your company is interested in, then as opportunities come to us, we will share them with you. And that's often the way it works. Next slide, please. To bring this to life, this is just a couple of examples of student projects that we've helped with recently. I should add that most of these projects are typically free, with any expenses incurred, however, being paid by the business, which is fair enough. That's usually just student travel costs, or sometimes it might be buying consumables, but typically very low cost or free. And most projects can be delivered remotely as well, so it really opens things up. The International Tourism and Hospitality programme there is one that we've just finished recruiting for. And it's a summer programme where postgraduate students at RGU will go out on a 4-week full-time unpaid placement between May and June. And this can be on your premises, it can be remote, or a combination of both. Now, these are postgraduate students, so typically they're looking for something more project-based. However, they can get involved in day-to-day running of tourism and hospitality businesses through a broad range of tasks, everything from research, admin, marketing, shadowing the management team, communication, including all aspects of social media, events planning, fundraising, or updating or creating new policies and procedures. Now, they were looking for a lot of students, and as I said, we've just finished recruiting for this. The placements are now underway. If you think this is something you'd be interested in next year, get in touch and we'll keep you on file, and when it comes, we'll share that opportunity with you. Now, on the other, and in a completely different area, we also help link into computer science students at Edinburgh Napier University. And every year from January to April, third-year undergraduate students take on projects in small teams. And these can typically involve software development or system configuration. And previous projects have involved developing applications for desktop, web, or mobile platforms, or development of interactive media such as video or animation. And you'll hear again from Julia at Whithorn Trust later on about her project that we fed into this particular student group. And finally, one that's live at the moment is management science students at University of Strathclyde. We're currently recruiting for these. The first one there is a business analysis and consulting course. That's with undergraduate students with skills in problem solving, decision analysis, optimization and data mining. And they're also familiar with aspects of business technology, such as AI or blockchain. And these are full-time placements over the summer from June to September, or part-time between October and April. Sorry, I've said them the wrong way around. The second one there is business analysis consulting students, and that's about students who are working as management consultants effectively, and so they'll cover things such as strategy, decision analysis, spreadsheet modelling and forecasting, data analysis and performance measurement. And so if anything there sounds of interest, please let us know. We also have great links into other business schools, and you'll hear from Mark from University of Glasgow about their opportunities shortly. Next slide, please. Just very quickly, I'm going to give you some case studies of how these have been used for local businesses in the south of Scotland. And the first one there is Beerhope Alpacas. It's a small family-owned business based in the Borders, and they started operating in 2017 with 5 alpacas and 12 acres. And their core offering is alpaca treks and meet the alpaca experiences. But they recognised they had a huge, natural assets, and they wanted to develop a range of offerings all based around the Beerhope brand. Now, initially they were looking for visual design ideas around how they could develop that story of their small holding, their alpacas and yarn, and their packaging and branding, all very much with a focus on provenance and their location in the Cheviot Hills. So by speaking to us, I was able to match them to University of Highlands and Islands, where a group of students in visual communication design worked on developing their brand and developing concepts and designs. And this was a situation where the company didn't have a budget, they didn't have the resource to do this themselves, and it didn't fit an innovation voucher. But by tapping into students, it's enabled them to sort of improve with very professional work created that otherwise would have been beyond their reach. Next slide, please. And finally, I'll just talk about Seaboard Memorial Hall, which is up in Easter Ross in the Highlands and Islands of Scotland, where there's a stretch of coastline called the Easter Ross Seaboard. And they have a memorial hall based up there, and they wanted to develop a heritage community centre to attract new tourism to the area. And it was all going to be based on a collection of paintings and memorabilia of a local man, an amateur artist from the past. And over 200 of his paintings were survived. And there's a lot of heritage and memorabilia about the fishing heritage of the area that they particularly wanted to showcase. And the hall realised that they needed expertise to develop a workforce plan for the centre to identify the new skills and expertise that would be required for a successful operation. And so they got in touch with us, and through our search process, we were able to secure the expertise of the University of St Andrews Museums, Galleries and Collections Institute, which is the research arm of the Museum and Gallery Studies programme at the University of St Andrews, and which has a huge knowledge in practical, vocational and research expertise in all aspects of museum work. Now, this particular one, as it was focused on developing the workforce, was funded by a Workforce Innovation Voucher. And as a result, the Seaboard Memorial Hall were delivered a pilot exhibition. They received a workforce plan which detailed the future skills required for the various activities of the Heritage Centre for both paid and volunteer workforce, and including future digital opportunities. So for the first time, they've been able to tell the story of the Seaboard area. And as a result, they've had increased tourist footfall, they've created employment for the local area, promoted career opportunities in the arts and heritage sector, and protected their fishing heritage for the local community. So really, really positive outcomes. So I think I've spoken enough, so I'm going to hand over to my colleague Mary, who's going to quickly talk you through some of her projects that she's worked on in the local area. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Shelley, thank you. Cumbrae Craft, North Ayrshire Council's Millport Conservation Area Regeneration Scheme, it's easy to say, was set up to preserve the historical features of Millport, which is sometimes known locally as the Isle of Cumbrae. So they were going to hopefully reinvigorate it as a seaside and island destination. So one of their projects was to engage with school children to teach them about their local heritage. However, unfortunately, the then Conservator Officer, Kasia Smith's plans for engagement with school children were thrown into chaos due to COVID-19, and the children were no longer attending school due to lockdown. Consequently, she came up with a very clever idea of developing something that would be interactive and engaging with the children, and she wanted to develop something along the lines of Minecraft. So anybody that doesn't know what Minecraft is, it's based on Lego, and it's online, and children absolutely love it. Interface were able to introduce Kasia to the renowned School of Design and Informatics at Abertay University, which is Europe's top-ranked institution for video games education. Consequently, Kasia only had a very small budget, so we decided to offer it up to master's students within the gaming school. 6 interested students came forward, and Kasia and an academic were going to interview the students with the intention of appointing 1 student to carry on through the project, through the development work. However, when they interviewed them, all the students were great. And neither Kasia or the academic could decide who should get the commission. So they went back, spoke to all the students again, and all the students agreed to work together on the project and split the money between themselves. So this is very much about the students' enthusiasm and willingness to work on the project rather than the cash involved. So Abertay took care of all the legal side and the finances and overseeing the development of the project. So the result is Cumbrae Craft, which has been designed to enhance the curriculum for excellence, and it has 8 distinct lessons, and is designed to let children explore local heritage landmarks and learn more about their local history. Cumbrae Craft has demonstrated how games can engage young people and learning about their heritage in a visual, interactive and fun way. Additional benefits have also included contributing to the electronic record of the local heritage, as well as introducing young people to potential career options in gaming and computer arts. Needless to say, both the school children and the parents absolutely loved the end result. And the students benefited by working as a team, and it was good technical experience, and they can add it to their CVs when they leave university as proof of projects they've worked on. Next slide, please. Annandale Distillery, which is based down in Annan. It's a highly successful Annandale Distillery. Opened its doors and went into whisky production in 2014. But behind the scenes, Interface had been working with Professor David Thompson, the owner, since 2007. And they were supporting the distillery with projects in several areas of their business, which involved collaborating with 6 separate universities. Projects include History of Scottish Immigrants with Glasgow Uni, Ideas Sketches for Visitor Centre, which they did with Edinburgh Napier, Biofuel Project, Edinburgh Napier, Retail Unit was the University of Edinburgh Business School, Plate Design was University of Edinburgh again, Brand Development was Glasgow Caledonian University, Culture and Scots Language to help with interpretation boards, etc., was University of Glasgow. Scottish Immigration, which was focusing on the Port of Annan, was again University of Dundee, and Merchandising Ideas was with University of Strathclyde. And their latest project, which is Net Zero, is with Edinburgh Napier. So the latest project happened December 2021, when Interface were asked to identify, within a very tight deadline, suitable businesses that could benefit from Scotland's Food and Drink Net Zero Challenge Fund. So Interface reached out to Annandale Distillery, and their general manager, David Ashton Hind, was able to highlight very quickly that they were looking for a solution for their washback process, which generates very high CO2 emissions. Interface then carried out quickly a university search for suitable academics to work on this project. And we were able to connect them to Annandale Distillery to Napier University. Together, Annandale Distillery and Napier University were able to submit an application to Scotland's Food and Drink Net Zero Challenge Fund, and they were successful, and they were all awarded £9,600 to carry out the feasibility study. So the study is still ongoing, and it's examining the process in making whisky, which generates washbacks from the fermentation process, which results in CO2 emissions. Each fermentation on the 6th washback lasts for 72 hours. So it produces the CO2 emissions for the whole process. In addition, there's also a lot of steam let off on the atmosphere, which is produced from water the distillery draws from a natural borehole. Consequently, Napier are looking for a solution that could harness the CO2 emissions and identify a system to utilise the steam produced in the process to harness the energy. So hopefully in a couple of months' time, the solution will be there, and that will save the distillery a lot of money, and it will also help their net zero outputs. So the owner, Professor David Thompson, has provided us with a little testimonial here. I am so grateful to Interface for bringing together this resource of extraordinary academic talent. Each project has had its own challenges, and the information and research has been pivotal to keeping the development phase on track. I was intrigued to see if the academic teams were up to the demands of the task, and I have been very impressed. Trying to lay my hands on all this information myself would have taken me a significant amount of time, but the Interface team pulled out all the stops to surpass my expectations. So excellent feedback there. Next slide. So this is just to give you a little bit about what Interface has contributed, because that's what we're all about, helping Scotland businesses grow the economy. So since we started, we've managed to contribute 88.9 million as the GVA. And we've also supported, it resulted in 1,595 Scottish jobs. So we've worked with 3,000 plus businesses and introduced them to partners across Scotland. And we also do customer survey feedback, and we follow our companies to find out what their impacts are, etc. And I'm pleased to say we have 100% satisfaction with interface service. So next slide, please. And I'm going to hand you over to Mark Gordon from the Adam Smith Business School. And that's our contact details, which we can come back to later. Can I get the next slide, please? Thank you. So I'm going to hand over to Mark Gordon from the Adam Smith Business School from Glasgow University. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you, Shelley, as well. That was great. So yeah, my name is Mark Gordon. I'm the Business Development Associate on behalf of the Adam Smith Business School Connections with Practice function. And if that sounds slightly ambiguous in terms of what the function is, it is slightly ambiguous, unfortunately. We're essentially the team that works on external engagement, very similar to the interface function as well, just from within the university. As Shelley mentioned originally, that there's somewhat of a wall sometimes between academics within an institution and external organizations. Or if there is any kind of relationship there, it tends to be on a kind of one-to-one basis, i.e. the academic might have a contact, either a previous student, or maybe they've done a consultancy with an external business, but that very much reliant on that academic themselves, driving that relationship forward. So the Connection Practice team, our whole goal is to be that bridge between external organizations and academics, essentially for research purposes, or external organizations and students for research projects. So, as I say, I work on behalf of the Adam Smith Business School, but we do support the School of Interdisciplinary Studies through the Masters in Management and Sustainable Tourism course that we have. So I'm going to quickly go through a couple of the different opportunities that we have for students and external organizations in terms of how you might engage. They're varying in terms of the amount of work that the external organization will have with the students, and in terms of the amount of in-depth engagement that we'll need to have on a kind of weekly, monthly basis. So I'll go through all of them, starting from maybe the more light touch into the more sort of involved engagements. Next slide, please. Perfect. So this, the first one is ESAM, which is the, and I always for some reason mix this up, but it's the European Summer School of Advanced Management. So this is accredited 2-week MBA summer school for both full-time and part-time MBA students. In this case, ESAM's not exclusive to the University of Glasgow. The students can come from strategic partner universities as well. The summer school lasts 3 weeks, or 2 weeks, I'm sorry, in total. 1 week in the Glasgow University campus, the kind of Hogwarts, what you'll see in that slide behind me, and one in the Dumfries campus as well. What it will take shape in is a consultancy type project with the external organisation, quite high level, over the course of a week, normally in groups of about 4 to 6. This is normally the kind of first engagement that we sometimes see with external organisations, as it's a good entry point into the Adam Smith Business School relationship management system. What we can do is, with the briefs that we might give the students, depending on what the business problem is, we can always recycle and update the briefs for future engagements, depending on what the organisation would like to do in the future. Next slide, please. The next type of engagement that we have is the student dissertation. Now, once again, this will be a case of a student who's wishing to do a research project with an external organisation, with the idea at the end, presenting an academic piece of work using and engaging with an external organisation to kind of form the basis of that problem. Within this, there's definitely more touch points with the organisation themselves as the period's longer. It's not a 2-week engagement like this at the MBA school. It's normally minimum a 3-month engagement for the postgraduate students, or if you are looking at undergrad, looking more like 6 months, because that's the length time the dissertation takes. There is a potential access for students to actually gather primary data within the organisation, although if the organisation wishes the student to only use secondary data, which has happened in the past, then they can do that as well. This type of engagement and process will normally take place in the summer or postgraduate, and it will normally take place throughout the entire year for undergraduate. And the last slide, please. This is probably the most pertinent in terms of the types of engagements that are more typical within the business school. And it's one that we see the students tend to derive a lot of value from, and that's the placement opportunities. They can be paid or unpaid depending on the nature of the business or the nature of the problem that we're doing. So currently, we're setting up our students on a couple of programs, one being the MBA, to go out for a 6-week-long industry research project. And what that takes the form of is the business will normally have a sort of time-sensitive and sometimes urgent, but sometimes a necessary business issue that they have to tackle, but they might not have the resources, the staff to look at it as in depth as they would like. So what they will do is they will actually create a business problem, or I say create a business problem, they'll create a brief around the business problem that they're currently having. So it's a live type project that the student will then actually go off and work on, and then be able to present the solutions to the company. That normally takes place, as I say, over a 6-week period. And in terms of the amount of engagement that you can tend to see from a student, there's a weekly check-in that will normally be for somebody like myself, who will work with the organisation to make sure that everything's going along fine and that the business problem itself is being looked at. And at the end of it, there is normally a presentation, and then the IP of the presentation and the document goes back to the organisation, so it wouldn't sit with the students. Now, the only potential issue with this is that it is quite, in terms of the industry research project, is it is very restricted to the project itself. So if an organisation was looking to work with the students, as Shelley mentioned earlier, in terms of being more hands-on within business, and you'd be looking at more a type of paid placement there, which we absolutely encourage organisations to look at. We do have a few examples of students that have gone off on placements and then gone to then work for that company post-graduation, or at least they've been able to use the experience gained on that placement to then further their employment opportunities, further sort of post-graduation, as I say. And the last slide is the contact details for the business school, and that is actually my colleague Ed Green, who is the BD manager. Ed owns the relationship with Interface, and if you have any questions, you can direct them to him. I see able to kind of take those forward. And that's me, so thank you so much. I'm now going to pass over to Julia from the Whithorns Trust to kind of round us off on this part.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me. I am the Chief Executive at the Whithorns Trust, which is a small archaeological trust in the extreme southwest of Scotland. Could I have the first slide, please? And so I'm going to introduce 3 projects that we've been involved with through Interface. Next, please. So our priority was actually on digital projects. That's partly because we've got a current priority to widen the audiences that we engage with. We've had in the past, pre-COVID at least, was a sort of predominantly older profile of visitor. So we were very keen to engage with families and young people. We're also currently on a digital leadership program. So we really want to place digital at the heart of everything we do. The obvious choice was to engage with academia, because that would link us with the very latest in developments. And because we are such a small organization, we don't have tech support, we don't have an information technology department. So this was our opportunity to work with universities, test out some ideas at really no cost to us at all, and also to link with people that we might potentially work with further. And that's evident in the last project. We've actually got St Andrews University on site as I speak. So clearly you can go start it with a pilot and move on to something bigger. Next slide, please. So the very first project was actually during COVID. Everybody was looking at digital as ways of engaging with the public at a distance. So it was, first of all, to create a 360-degree tour of our site. And it is available online, but also through VR goggles. And we worked with Alena and Kirsten at the Glasgow and Edinburgh University Business Schools. They had their own research rationale for being engaged with us, and that was to look at the impacts of virtual reality on marketing and whether VR enhanced marketing had a better effect, if you like, on visitor appetite to come to a visitor attraction. So to test their theory, they engaged with a film crew, filmed a 360-degree film, took photographs, and we just guided them around our site in the order that we felt visitors should visit. We provided them with text. They hired an actor, and we also felt that the whole idea of a 360-degree tour would let us make our site more accessible. It's a dispersed site. There are uneven surfaces, so actually some people who can't access it physically will be able to see it just by sitting in our visitor center or indeed online. Next slide, please. So this is just the sort of entry point to the tour, and you can see there are different stages of the tour in the circles below that you can click upon. Obviously you can move it around at all angles, and you move into the site under the arch and see the different aspects that you can enjoy as a visitor. Next slide. And we used the 360-degree tour. This is just a shot of our website where you can buy a digital ticket, and the sort of introductory page has the 360-degree tour on it. So you can kind of have a shot at visiting our site, and then that incentivizes your purchase of a ticket, we hope. Next slide. Second project, only just complete. This was through Napier University undergraduates, a quite different approach, and Mari was the person who alerted us to it. The students bid in on different projects that are submitted by businesses, or in our case, charities. And we asked if the students would provide a critique of an app that we have, and to suggest and create upgrades to it. Next slide, please. So the app is called Walk the Whithorn Way. We had developed it in 2019 for Android and iPhone. It is a walker's app, so it geolocates you on the route that follows the ancient pilgrimage route from Glasgow to Whithorn. And we wanted to improve its usability, looking at some accessibility features, and simply looking at it from the students' age group point of view. What did they think? What did they find unattractive about the existing app, and what would they introduce, knowing the latest developments as they do, and much better than we do. So they broke it down into a project which had must-haves, could-haves, and won't-haves, which left it open to us to develop the won't-haves at a future stage. Next slide, please. So I'm incapable of telling you about the technologies they use. This is just a shot from their presentation that was only a couple of weeks ago, where they get judged by their professors. But that's what it looks like on your phone. And these were the types of software that they were using. Next slide, please. It was a process which was quite tightly defined by the university, so they had very limited time in which to work on it. They had to conform to project management guidelines, and I was in regular touch with their lead project manager, one of the undergraduates. They had to treat us as a client, and then the university would check in to see how they were getting on and that they were actually doing what they were doing. I was particularly impressed that they found a bug in the existing app that hadn't actually been spotted by the developer at the time, and that was preventing our collectible pilgrim stamps from working properly, and they managed to find it, analyze it, and fix it. Next slide, please. So my third project is actually still really very much being worked on, although it's reached a very decisive first phase, and that was through SSDA. We were already working with SSDA on with a number of other visitor attractions, and a competition was run to offer a new augmented reality feature for our site. It also was on a very tight turnaround, so the criteria were that you had to have obviously a concrete idea for your AR experience, but also quite a lot of material in place, visuals and so on, that would enable the build of the experience to happen in quite a short turnaround. So we had a strong interest in Whithorn 1300 years ago. It's a very key period for Whithorn, and of course it's the time at which Whithorn got its name. Next slide. The university that was matched to us, if you like, was St Andrews and their smart history team, who had already created a tour of Edinburgh 1544 that interested us very much, because it was based on archaeological and topographical data. And so we asked them to create a tour of Whithorn in 780. Next slide, please. This is the area that we were interested in virtually rebuilding. So this is what was excavated back in the 1980s. As you can see, once the archaeologists have been, there's not much to see. And therefore, the attraction to us was that it would enable visitors actually to see what we believe was there more or less under their feet 700 years ago. And the next phase that we're still working on is, now we've got the app to provide beacons where visitors can geolocate their view of Northumbrian Whithorn. Next slide, please. So these were the old drawings back from the 1980s, and we provided those to the St Andrews team. We also happen to have, through various other sources, some architects and archaeologists and filmmakers who are working with us, so they were able to talk to St Andrews and provide input to make the app work. Next slide, please. So this is actually what St Andrews came up with. This is just a still of the area of Northumbrian Church and Burial Chapel in around 780. Next slide, please. If there's time, I'll just show you a quick, this was the penultimate version of the Northumbrian period Whithorn. If you want to truncate it because of time, you can just show the first few seconds if you like. I think that's playing slightly slow, but anyway, you get the general idea that there is a 3D vision of Whithorn that would be available to visitors and archaeologically accurate. If you want to stop that, I'll just show you the last little bit of development. Last slide, please. Today, we've actually launched a little social media campaign, which shows clips from that slide through. That's actually the final version where the colors have been corrected. So it's very much an ongoing project. St Andrews are visiting today. We're looking at creating other time periods, and hopefully the whole thing will develop into quite a complex app for visitors with stations on site where they can see it from the very spot where you would see those buildings hundreds of years ago. So those are my 3 projects, and I think I'll stop there because I think time is short.
That's great. Thank you so much, Julia. Fantastic to see what's come out of those collaborations that Mary was able to help you with. We've got a few minutes for questions. We've got about 6 minutes left in the webinar. So if anyone watching would like to ask any questions, feel free to pop them in, and we'll use this time to do that. Julia, I've got just sort of a follow-up question from your presentation. These projects obviously look, very successful. Have you faced any challenges in working with all these different organisations? And if so, how's it been overcome?
I suppose, as somebody said early on, it's just slightly different working with academics. Obviously, working with the first group from Glasgow and Edinburgh, we were aware that they had their own kind of research priorities, which made it of interest to them to work with us at all. So it was not a challenge, but just a different way of approaching it. It was all designed from their point of view to end up as a research paper. From our point of view, it was just a very nice 360-degree tour that increased our uptake on the web and throughput to sales of tickets. So just, you've got to be aware that those two things may be going on at the same time. And in regard to students, clearly students are still students as I remember it. So sometimes they're on, the midnight, last minute preparations, and you just accept that that's their timetable. But in terms of communications, it was excellent because the university made sure that they were communicating. And again, with St Andrews, you are dealing with people who are actively lecturing and so on, so you have to respect that. That's a timetable that you work to, but I wouldn't say there were disadvantages in any respect. It's just realizing what those organizations' other priorities are and working with them.
Yeah, I think that's really useful, and it certainly resonates with the sort of experience we've had with companies that we've worked with over the years. Researchers are coming at this with the view to they want to advance their research. So it's so important to have those conversations early on and understand what each party is wanting to get out of it, because obviously from the commercial side you're looking for specific things, and from their academic side they're looking for specific things. And perhaps Mark will reinforce this in terms of working with students. They're a great resource, and we generally find that the work they do is fantastic and highly valued, but they are students, and so we wouldn't ever put anything business critical forward as projects. It should be sort of a nice to have, maybe something on the back burner, something you haven't got to, and as a way of bringing in that resource. And if something grows from that, then fantastic, and often it does. Would you agree with that, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a good point. We do have a live example, and unfortunately, I can't name the company just for just in this case for confidentiality reasons. But we do have a live example of that just now of a company that sells alcoholic drinks. That are currently have one of those types of problems that, even though it's not business critical, it could become business critical in the future. In a nutshell, the company was losing a large portion of their sales from Europe because their website actually wasn't able to calculate the VAT issue correctly. So what would happen is consumers would be buying their other products, and then they'd be delivered to them in different parts of Europe. But then maybe a couple of weeks later, they'd then be given a separate VAT, a local VAT invoice as well, meaning that they essentially had to pay twice. The overall transaction didn't add any more money, but from a consumer point of view and from kind of a consumer satisfaction, they pinpointed that as being one of the reasons they were losing quite a lot of sales, just from the hassle of having to basically pay double. So that particular case, what the company have asked the particular students that they've selected to do is to explore the opportunity of actually setting up a European distribution hub to then have everything shipped out through there, which will then enable them to get around that VAT issue. So as you say, Shelley, it's not business critical in the sense that it's not going to make or break their entire business or their profits, but it's something that if not looked at kind of fairly soon, it might affect their plans for growth and expansion in the future. So, it's one of those ones where I think we've definitely trusted the students to kind of go off and figure that out and then present it to them, and then they'll act on it accordingly.
Great, thank you. Well, we're now at 14:59, so I don't see any other questions coming through. So I think we can just wrap up. Ross, I don't know if you want to close up things off. Thank you so much for giving us this platform today. And I really hope everyone's enjoyed it. And please feel free to reach out to myself, Mary, Ed at University of Glasgow, and Julia, thank you so much for sharing your journey and what you're doing. Best of luck with everything.
Thanks, Shelley, and yeah, one more thank you to obviously Shelley, Mary, Mark, and Julia for giving us the kind of 3 views of how businesses can engage with top-class academic resource to kind of solve business problems that lead to profitable growth. That was a really kind of great insight from those 3 perspectives, and I know even within our team we're going to build on the relationship we already have. So thank you all. Thanks to everyone for attending. Just got one last slide, Gavin, I think. This is part of a series of webinars that we put on for our members at the SSDA. I just want to kind of highlight some forthcoming events. Try on our website and our email newsletters to have a look at forthcoming events. I won't keep you any longer, but I just want to say thank you once again to our presenters, and thank you to all of you for joining us as members. It's much appreciated, and look forward to seeing you soon.